Two guys either side of 50 with one dream to achieve middle-aged sporting glory. This is the Missing Links Golf Show. Episode 5. Here we are. This is amazing. 5th episode of the Missing Links Golf Show. I'm Steve Hinks, joined by that wonderful wielder of the broomstick putter, Andy Walker. Andy, welcome to episode 5. They said we'd never make it, but here we are.
Here we are. So I'm not necessarily agreeance of the fact that I'm a wonderful with the broomy. Certainly, my golf on Friday with the broomy left a lot to be desired. However, we're working on it.
Well, that's good news. I was looking for an adjective that started with a W, so that I could use my alliterative skills for wielding. But anyway, that was the best I had. So who knows? We'll see what
I think
comes out
maybe
next episode.
what wildly wielding.
Oh, that's good. That's good. There's other W words that are springing to mind, but probably not appropriate for this time slot. Nevertheless, episode 4, our last episode, I think, Andy Walker, it's fair to say was probably one of our best, at least according to listener feedback. So our listeners are growing. This is good. We're dominating the United States now. We've moved into Ashburn, Virginia.
Excellent.
We're also in Ohio. We've got some listeners in Iowa, and also the beautiful city of Omaha.
Wow.
So yeah, there's quite the spread throughout the United States. So a very big hello, a big g'day, a big howdy y'all to all of our US listeners. Great to have you on board. But there was a lot of really good feedback. The Dave McClelland interview last episode was certainly one that I received a lot of really positive feedback about. Simply just the quality of the information that he provided, which I thought was fantastic. And some things in particular, there was a few listeners that loved his focus on short game as opposed to our focus on ball striking. This might be something that we need to unpack.
Yeah, look, and Dave's a very he looks at the game in a very old school manner. He's he's learned the game via his own sort of feel, and he's learned the game his way. And part of that is learning how to be a great chipper, how to be a great putter, and to get the ball in the hole. And we've talked about that briefly, and that is important. However, I'm still a big fan of ball striking, but not to the detriment of your short game.
And I think that's probably going to be the message that I take away from that. And I've now listened to that episode a couple of times just to kind of get a much better understanding of what Dave's talking about. And I think for mine, there needs to be balance. And I think we need to put focus on both ends of the game. I think it's fair. I really liked some of his practical tips on how to go about it. And that was one of the things that some of the other listeners as well pointed out, that they liked the reminder around the 1 foot, 3 foot, 6 foot putting drill. Not sure the 1 footers are that useful, but anyway, maybe that's a confidence builder. I don't know.
Yeah, look, I think it's just building the stroke, and it's just building a routine. And yeah, what 1 foot might be a little bit short, but certainly 18 inches. I mean, I've missed my fair share of 18-inch putts before. Some of it carelessness, and some of it just poor stroke. But certainly, 18-inch, 3 foot, 6 foot. I think there's a lot of benefit in doing that. And I did have a bit of on Tuesday afternoon, I had a little bit of time before I went and picked up the kids, and I just grabbed the broomy and took 3 balls and did that. I did 18 inches, 3 foot, 6 foot, and did that for about 20 minutes. And I actually felt like I had a really good practice putting session, even though it was a bit shorter than what I would normally try and put in.
Yeah, and I also had a bit of go at it, and I thought it was good. And what I like about it is that it gives a little bit of structure rather than just sort of standing on the practice green and looking where the next hole is and banging some putts around. So I
Mm.
like the that drill. And there was another one that we popped on, or that I popped on the Facebook page, Missing Links Golf Show on Facebook a little while ago, which was through the tees, through the gate,
Mm.
just to get the stroke hitting the center of the face. So that was really useful also. So it's good to build a few drills to go through. We've got, obviously, we've got the fans out there, but also, like any show in the media, we've got our critics.
We do.
And there are some critics, and I know our harshest critic very well. In fact, I'm married to her. Love you very much, my beautiful wife. But obviously, she's not a mad fan of golf, and therefore, when we go into a huge amount of detail about strokes gained, probably not her favorite episode. But she did give some glowing praise about the interview with Dave, and said that it was great to hear some of his tips, which she feels can be applied to all facets of life, not just golf. So I thought that was actually high praise indeed.
Great. Yeah. Well, interestingly, of course, I was having a conversation with my father, who he is actually quite a technical person, likes to get into the detail, and he was the opposite. In fact, he really liked the technical aspects of episodes 2 and 3, really got into the nitty-gritty of the data and the stats. And then sort of went, episode 4 with David was good, but I didn't feel I got as much out of it. And then when I started questioning about, well, what about the putting techniques? And he was like, yeah, that's pretty useful. Yeah, I'll probably go and do that. So I think, a lot of it's horses for courses, and you naturally go to where your personality type is. And Dad certainly is a very technical person. So he really likes that technical aspect of the game.
So what you're saying is, Andy Walker, this show's got something for everyone.
It does. It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Even the non-golfer.
Yeah. I mean, look, maybe. Probably more suited to the golfer. But hey, that's okay. If you're still listening at this point, that's a good sign that there's something in it for you.
Exactly.
I think you've had a bit of feedback as well that's come your way in relation to our show, I believe.
I did have a bit of feedback, actually from a mate of ours who was listening to episode 3 and around my goals around strokes gained. And one of my goals, and what I said, is that currently, as per Arcos, my putting is minus 1.0 in relation to a scratch golfer, and where I wanted to get to was, and what I said on the podcast was, I wanted to get to minus 0.05. Now, I meant to say I want to get to minus 0.5. Bit of a slip of the tongue, obviously. And he was all over that and saying my mathematical skills were questionable, which I actually disagree with. I don't think it's my mathematical skills that were the issue. I think it was more my English skills that were the issue.
I see. I see. I think when you put the two together, we come up with a term called numeracy. Maybe more than the numeracy skills, being somewhat innumerate. Bit of a concern in your line of work, but that's a story for another day. And good on you for coming clean and for clearing that one up, because I too was a little confused. But not being a pedant, I wasn't going to pick you up on that one. So
well, it has been a long time since I left school. I mean, I left school in 1990. Did fairly poorly in my HSC, mind you, because that was during the time where I was more focused on golf than on my numeracy, literacy, and any other type of academic skills. But no, thank you, Mr. Mannix. I know you're listening. Appreciate
he's a friend of the show. So
he's and look, accountability. That's what it's all about, and that's what we have with our listeners, which very much appreciated.
They must keep you honest. There was a few things we talked a little bit about from the Dave McClelland interview, and one of the ones, actually, this is something I do want to talk about, was the difference. So Dave's old school focus on short game, I believe, if I remember this correctly, his quote was something along the lines of, short game, short game, short game, short game.
Yeah.
There
I think it was only 3 short games. I don't think it was 4.
was a lot of short game going
Yeah,
on
well,
there.
there
I've
was.
listened to it a few
Yeah.
times. I was hearing driver, but anyway, that was
Mm,
obviously incorrect.
mm. I
Another
thought it was strokes gained you were hearing.
strokes against straight. Yeah, yeah, ball striking, ball striking. No, I did also get some feedback from another friend of the show, long-time listener, first-time caller, who dropped in that his approach, similar to Dave's, very short game focused, but our criticism of the total number of putts as a metric of putting success, he actually has an interesting take on this. I haven't run this by you yet, but
Yep.
he looks at shots around the green. So
Yep.
that might be putts, but also chips, little pitches, chips around the green. And he plays off 9. So an outstanding golfer. And he says that his target is to have less than 40 chips and putts combined in his round. And if he can achieve that, he will shoot, he'll probably shoot in 70s and mid to late 70s as a result of that. So I actually don't mind that. I think that's not a bad sort of a metric to look at. I haven't done that with my own game, but I might actually have a bit of a look at that and see.
Yeah, I have to say that's a metric I've never looked at, but I also think that's potentially dependent on how good or not so good you're hitting the ball. Because I know quite an off day, depending on how close you're looking at when you're talking about shots around the green. But if you've had quite a poor ball striking day, that could really ramp up that number.
Well, it would. It would. I mean, I think, you've got to be looking at, you're going to be getting around the green in pretty close to regulation for 40 chips and putts to deliver you a decent score. So, yes, you can't be spraying them into the trees and chipping out and taking, 3 to get there on par 4 and still missing the green. So, but anyway, it's interesting. It's another approach. Here at the Missing Links Golf Show, we always love a new approach and another thing to think about. So, I think that's a good one. There was another point though that Dave McClelland raised, and I want to check this with you because I've listened to this a couple of times on episode 4, and I hear it and I go, oh, that's interesting. I'm not sure.
Yep.
I need to check that. He described Andy Walker. He described you as a technical player. Is this true? Is this how you see your own game?
I'm technically correct. I've always liked to be technically correct, and I've always worked on my technique to ensure that it's as close as what it can be to what is considered correct. However, once I get on the golf course, I try and forget about technique and more work on feel. And I usually take one swing thought with me onto the course, and that's it. I couldn't play with 5, 6, 7 different swing thoughts. It would just do my head in. So yes, in practice, and I like to be technically correct, but not when I get out to the golf course. I do try and become a bit more of a feel player, and rather than just being purely technical.
Yeah. Okay. That's kind of where I saw it. I got to admit, I've never really seen you as what I would describe as a technical player. Good ball striker, yes, but you're not the sort of person that sort of, for mine at least, gets out there and seems to be overly concerned about, left arms here, right arms there, stance looks like this, changing the grip, focus on all of these sorts of things. But maybe that explains it. But yeah,
I think potentially as a junior, I was a lot more focused technically than what I am now. I think as life with the life experience and a bit more perspective, that feel of the game has become a lot more important, and playing what's in front of you rather than going, okay, I've got 150 meters to the flag, and just trying to hit the same shot all the time. So now I'm trying to not hit different shapes of shot. I have a standard shape, but more it's around feeling how aggressive I need to be through the ball, or hitting it lower or maybe a little bit higher, rather than just having just one shot I always hit.
Yep, that makes sense. That makes sense. So great interview last episode, but obviously this episode we want to talk about some other things. And I left a bit of a cliffhanger last
Yes.
episode as well, which I think we need to clear up what happened in Bathurst.
Yes.
So,
The suspense has been killing me for a week.
I'm sure it has. So for those of you that recall, Saturday last week, Saturday a week ago. Anyway, it was a little while ago now that a historic moment in the Missing Links Golf Show took place where I played the first competition round to report back. And as you might recall, my handicap was sitting at 10.0. I've got 3 non-flag rounds to drop out. So that's 3 free swings at getting a new flag round in to drop that handicap into the single digits.
And
the pressure was on. So we teed off. It was early morning. We teed off down in Bathurst. It was around about 5 to 6 degrees. Teed off the 10th because it's the hardest tee shot on the course. So why not? Limited warm up. Got to be honest. And the 10th, it's a long par 4. Water down the left, trees down the right. There's really no bailout. You can possibly fly the water if you really crunch one. It's probably about a 240 meter carry. So,
but with at 5 degrees,
probably
is
not
that
gonna
the
happen.
shot that you're looking to hit?
Well, you don't really want to fly it anyway, to be honest, because it's on the left side and it dog legs slightly around to the left. So you really, kind of hugging the inside of the corner there. Anyway, so I step up onto the tee, aiming safely up the center right of the fairway. And I think it's fair to say I slightly blocked it. And as a left-hander, that's then on a line that was probably cutting just the corner of the water. But Andy Walker, it carried the water and it got over. Not by much, let me tell you. But it did get over. And I then, I had a bit of an adventure. Then I hit my second, sorry, the lurgy hanging around. Hit my second into the greenside bunker. The bunkers at Bathurst, I've got to say, were pretty average on this day. There were quite a few undulations. So I was in a nice little gully, bladed it into the lip.
Nice.
And stayed in the bunker, and then had a great sand save at the second attempt for bogey. So that was a nice outcome. Look, I'm not going to bore you with a hole by hole description of the round, but suffice to say, it was going okay until the 9th. Hit a great drive up the 9th. Again, hit my approach into the greenside bunker and really massacred the bunker play on that and wiped that hole. It was a Stableford event. I finished with 30 points.
Wow. So that's one free round gone?
Yeah. But interestingly, so it is. That's one free swing swung for no result.
So 10.0
still. 10.0. But see, this is the thing. So that off the stick was an 87. It's past 71. That was an 87. So it was really interesting because I remember we talked about this before about staying in the round, and even when you know that the round's not great, like staying in it. I finished the round par birdie par over the last 3 holes to get to 30 points, and could have easily given it away. And the thing is, I was 1 shot when you take the differential into it. I was 1 shot off that becoming a flag round and dropping down to 9.9. Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
Because the course was tough that day. It was the week after the Bathurst Open, so greens were lightning fast. The other thing was that the golf gods absolutely got a hold of me like you wouldn't believe, because we've been talking about the importance of ball striking over short game as the areas to improve your strokes gained. My ball striking was pretty good. I reckon I had about 5 3-putts during the round, along with a couple of adventures in those 2 bunkers that I talked about. So the golfing gods said, actually, to quote Dave McClelland, short game, short game, short game. lesson learned, ladies and gentlemen, lesson learned. So anyway, that was my adventure. Have you had any adventures, Andy Walker?
I've had a couple of adventures, in all honesty. So I went out and I had a game at Magenta Shores last Friday, actually with David McClelland, which was a really, really good day. Similar experience to you in that I actually hit the ball reasonably well and just putted appallingly bad. I think I probably had, I reckon, maybe 5, potentially even 6 3-putts. Magenta Shores, I did
It can happen.
miss. I missed a couple of my shot targets, and if you do that on the greens at Magenta, some of the putts you end up with are horrific. So yeah, well, I hit 11 greens, but yeah, I ended up with 10 over, which I wasn't overly happy with, obviously from a putting performance perspective. So very similar experience to yourself, where yeah, the golfing gods came back and said, "Hey, dude, you need to be still focused on your short game of putting."
It would appear. So I do think, and we did cop some criticism for our focus on ball striking in episodes 2 and 3. And I feel like our critics may have a point. So I think a bit of a readjustment needs to happen there. But anyhow, that's okay. What I would like to add, though, is there has been a lot of, like, I've been focusing on ball striking improvement, as you know, and I've been working on a little drill in the net in the garage, which has been fun. And that is about really pushing back off the front foot on the downswing to get the hip rotation, the magic move, the life changer. We might pop that video up. It's on YouTube. We might pop that up on our Facebook page. Really trying to do that move.
Yep.
Because I've been suffering some toe striking as my miss on irons. So anyway, I was focusing on that, and let me read you an excerpt, because this actually covers another point, and this is my development plan was journaling. I've been journaling, Andy Walker. Here it is.
Excellent.
You hear the rustling of the old pages. So I want to just a little bit in here from a practice session. It says here, net hitting session. Decided to try the foot powder spray to check club face and strike location. So if you don't know what that means, you get the old tinny of foot spray, which you can buy for about $10.
Yes.
Spray it on the face of your club, and you get this sort of white powdery film on your club. Hit the ball with that, and it shows you exactly, like, it takes the powder off where you hit the ball. So it shows you exactly where you're striking the ball on the club face.
Nice.
So that was really interesting. So I tried that. So I thought I'll do that. And then I say I also tried to implement the life changer front foot move. So this is from the Chasing Scratch guys that got this one at Titleist.
Yeah, I have seen that video. A very, very worthwhile YouTube video to watch.
It really is, because it stops the tendency to early extend and push the hips forward on the downswing, which I think I'd probably have been suffering from. Anyway, I go on to say, amazingly, it immediately moved my toe strike issue to a center and slightly heel biased strike immediately and consistently. I can't remember ever hitting it consistently better. These are big words. It also felt more powerful. I literally felt like I had more club head speed doing this. And then I go on to say, I was keen to test it out on the course.
And have you tested it out on the course?
Well, I have, and I'm glad you asked. On Tuesday after work, I managed to squeeze in 9 holes with a couple of the other people from the Missing Links Society. And it my goodness, it worked extremely well. So I was 2 under after 3 holes.
Nice.
Birdie par birdie.
Nice.
And
how many holes did you play?
I played 9 and finished the 9, unfortunately 2 over.
Okay.
but gave a couple back. But still, I was pretty happy with 9 holes at two over
Yeah.
par, and
Yeah.
was striping it. So
Nice. Could be a
obviously
little
that
key there.
yeah, and obviously that will never happen again now that I've said it
Mm,
out loud. But that really was quite something, and it's
mm,
nice. It is actually nice to then sit down, write that in the book, and have the chance to go back and read it again later.
mm,
So I'm enjoying the journaling.
mm. Great. Well, a couple a couple of other things that happened recently for me, and we talk about challenges. Some of the challenges that one particular challenge that I've been facing is that I haven't been able to get in my stack workouts for club head speed.
Oh, this is bad
Yeah,
news.
I had a bit of an incident
Ooh.
between my stack device and my Garmin G80 had a bit of a disagreement.
Oh,
Um, More so now there's one of the techniques that you use in the stack is called a step swing. And
mm,
you sort of feel a little bit sort of Happy Gilmore while you're doing this step swing in that you set up as you in your normal address, and then you basically bring your front foot back to your rear foot with your feet together, and you swing back. And at the top of your swing, you take a step forward to your normal address position
yep.
and swing through. Now, the problem that I had was that at the top of my swing, my counterbalance went a bit the wrong way, went a bit forward, lost balance, and on the downswing step, I collected the Garmin G80.
That doesn't
And
sound great.
no, the it didn't fly that well across the garage.
Mm,
My wife, who was asleep at the time, it was a bit of an early stack session, actually heard it
mm.
hit the garage door. Now, the Garmin is not good. It's not in a good place at all. In fact, it's probably unusable. Uh,
Oh, this
the
is a
stack
tragedy.
had a little bit of damage to it. Now, I have contacted both the stack and Garmin, and look, credit where credit's due. Both have been really, really good. Both have been amazing. The guys at the stack basically said, and the damage, and I'll quote the
I think we need
part.
some photos of this up on the Facebook page,
I
Andy
have got some
Walker.
photos,
I
and
think we need to put this
we'll
up.
post some photos. But the part on the end, which is called the yellow threaded handle,
Mm.
so that's got a little bit of damage to it. But they said that not really going to make any difference, and it should work well, as per the specs, just as it is. So the damage isn't going to be an issue. Garmin, I sent them the photos, and Garmin basically said, "Yep, you need to send that back to us," and very, very generously have offered me a refurbished replacement for a greatly discounted price, which is hasn't arrived yet, but it's on the way. So I'm looking forward to receiving my refurbished Garmin G80 so I can resume my stack training.
Yes, yes. So I'm like listening to you tell this story, I'm trying to picture it. I think I've got a good
Mm,
understanding of what's happened.
mm,
And it actually makes me think that something's gone wrong here in the swing. And I mean, obviously something's gone wrong in the swing, but the stack is essentially a shaft
mm.
with a bit of a bulbous bit on the end, but without a club head, right?
Yeah, with weights.
Yeah,
And you put various weights, and
yeah,
you can change the weights
yeah. But in terms
on
of shape, you're swinging the shaft with a bit of a
correct.
lump on the end of it.
Hmm.
And I assume that you obviously weren't trying to hit the Garmin, um,
Surprisingly, no, I wasn't trying to hit the Garmin.
which leads me to the conclusion that you've got in your swing, you've got the shaft much further away from you than you were planning to. This, Andy Walker, sounds a lot like a shank.
Potentially,
I feel like
potentially.
you've shanked your Garmin.
Mm, mm, yes.
Bit of a
Yes,
concern.
it is. It
Yeah.
is.
So if that wasn't already in your head, I'm quite happy to have placed it there.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I won't be thinking that at all next time I stand up over the Garmin with the
Yeah.
stack.
Don't shank it. That's the swing thought. Just carry that one.
Mm,
Don't shank
mm,
it.
mm. It
Don't
was actually
don't
quite
do
a
it.
quite a good cover drive to be honest with you. It was
Ah,
the front foot
yeah,
forward across
yeah,
off stump
yeah,
cover drive,
yeah.
which basically and look the Garmin did go through just sort of wide of mid off into the garage door. So, look,
So well
I think
struck.
you would have been proud.
It sounds good. It sounds really good.
Mm.
Look, I'm glad that both organisations have come good on that. I think that's absolutely fantastic. And I know facetiously we have done some shout outs to other potential companies over the previous episodes, but I think on this one we absolutely should, and give a
Yeah,
huge shout out
absolutely.
back to Garmin and the Stack for
Oh,
coming good
absolutely.
on and standing behind their product. There's so many
Yeah,
businesses that would just turn around and say bad luck, you had a
yep,
shocker.
yeah,
But
absolutely,
I think that's
absolutely.
great. I think
Yeah.
that's
Now, look,
excellent.
and I did, Garmin as well. I mean, what they basically said that they don't do G80 repairs in Australia. So
Right.
apparently they do have a facility in the US, but they basically said, look, we don't do it in Australia. However, we do have these refurbished products, and just send your old Garmin in, and yeah, we'll replace it with a refurbished product for, yeah, as I said, it was a minimal cost and really a no brainer. So that was good. And then the guys at the Stack, who yeah, they had a look at the photos. They gave some really good feedback, and just said, yeah, you should be good, but let us know if there's any issues.
Yeah, they didn't give any swing advice to maybe keep the club a little closer to the body on the downswing.
No, they
That's
didn't.
nice. That's nice.
I think that really goes without saying.
Well, you would think so, wouldn't you?
Mm,
Obviously not. Um, all right. So look, one other topic that I kind of wouldn't mind raising, because this is about a little bit of a progress update on our improvement plans.
mm,
And congratulations to you for putting yours in our shared Google Calendar.
correct,
I think that's
correct.
good.
Mm,
Um,
mm. Have
I
you put yours in our shared Google Calendar,
no,
Steve?
no, I
No.
haven't. I've still got just
I'd,
that
I'd,
little
I'd actually like our
PDF.
listeners to provide some feedback regarding this. And what I might do actually is take a print screen of the Google Calendar with my schedule, practice and workout schedule in there. And there's a notable absence of Mr. Hinks's schedule, which,
At
yeah,
the
I mean, look,
moment,
I really question the commitment that you've got to this process. I thought that, we're both on the same page here, but I don't know, maybe not.
wow, powerful words indeed. This much I will say. Whilst I haven't been focused in putting the plan into the Google Calendar, I have been focused on following the plan, and that's important. And one of the things that I did want to talk about, because I know both of us looked at this suggestion a little bit sideways, is meditation. And so what I have been doing on a pretty regular basis, not every day, but most days, is
Um,
no. So you don't go. Yeah, well, you mean you could if you want to, but I don't go. That's not my thing.
no.
This has been the process that I put in, because as we talked, I didn't really know much about how to meditate because I've never done it before. So my options were to either do some research and try to learn a bit about it, download an app, um, to try and do it, or just try and figure it out myself. So of course I went for the third option, to just try and figure it out myself.
Mm, mm,
So what I have done, what I do know is about trying to stay in the present, in the moment, have a center of focus, absorb the things that are happening around, but not react. Um, that's basically the essence of what I believe I'm trying to achieve with
mm.
meditation. Still the
How's that going
mind.
for you?
So very interesting. So what I've been doing is, the classic sit cross-legged on the floor,
See,
without saying,
that's what that says to me.
yeah. Some people, from what I've heard, like to stare at a candle flame, something like that. I feel that might be slightly dangerous, just in case I do fall asleep and then that gets knocked over and set the house on fire. So what I've decided to do is I stare at a golf ball on the floor a couple of meters in front of me, because I just feel like that's linked to our mission. Okay. And
so is it sort of like the Matrix, where the chosen one like bends the spoon, and you say there really is no spoon. So it's sort of coming at it from there is no golf ball.
Oh, there's a golf ball. What I've actually been slipping into sometimes is thinking that I might be able to move the golf ball with my Jedi.
The Force. Okay, excellent. Bit of Yoda. I like it. I like it.
And at that point I go, hang on a minute, you're not doing it right. But the point of it is to try and stop yourself from thinking about the future or the past. So that is so hard. Okay. That is so hard. So trying to focus on the breathing, breathe in, breathe out, stare at the golf ball, breathe in, breathe out, stare at the golf ball. You might hear the birds outside and those sorts of things. That's okay. Let that come in, wash over. Don't focus on it, but just allow it. Move on, thinking, breathe in, breathe out, look at the golf ball. You catch yourself then thinking about all the things you got to do during the day, thinking about the other things that might have happened the other day, and this drifting in and out of the present and into the future and the past. That's how our brains work. We process information like that. I find it extremely difficult to stay present during this process and not drift. What I've also found is interesting, and I think this might change depending on stress levels, but I've actually been drifting into the future, thinking about what I'm going to do more so than into the past, thinking about what has happened. That's been an interesting observation. I think
so has that been more about thinking about goals, or is it more thinking about what you're going to be doing, like process type thoughts?
It's really random, because what I'm trying to do is not think about any of those sorts of things. And so you don't have a structured thought process that's thinking about goals or thinking about a specific to-do list or whatever, but stuff will drift in, just in sort of daydreamy ways will drift in. I would say that, if you had a really, difficult meeting or something the day before, or you had an argument with someone or something like that, then you'd probably start having that conversation over again and you drift into the past.
Yeah.
But I haven't had any of those issues to deal with, fortunately. So it's all been this drift into the future. Interestingly, though, when you apply that in a golf setting, and I think we talked about this a little bit about how to focus on, the mental approach of being present in every shot. You have your think box where you're thinking strategy before you get over the ball. Then when you step over the ball, you just need to be focused on the athletic motion of hitting the ball and be present and not be thinking about the outcome and not be thinking technical thoughts and those things.
Correct.
I find that hard. So whilst meditating so far, because I haven't been doing it long, hasn't really helped, it's made me more aware of that being something that I need to continue to work on. So I think from that perspective, it's been worthwhile.
Yeah, look, and I agree with that. And while I haven't ever tried any meditation sitting still, I do, because I've got two dogs, which I take out for a 15-20 minute walk every day. And I do try and quieten my mind during that time, where I just want to be present with the dogs, enjoy the dogs' company. They're getting a little bit older now, so just trying to be there in that present moment. And it is, because you start thinking about, what have I got to do today, and what am I going to do when I get home, and what conversations have I got to have today, and I might start thinking about some of the goals that I've set for myself, whether it be business, golf, or personal. So it's really hard to stay in that moment. I mean, I'm a little bit more used to run the golf course, so I know what my thought processes are on the golf course. Don't always get it right, but I'm better on the golf course than what I am off the golf course at staying present.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I remember in cricket playing days, there were techniques that I would put in place as the bowler, like when facing up to the bowler, as the bowler was nearing the crease and getting to the gather. Because the trick is, you don't want to be concentrating for longer than you need to, because that's when you'll stop concentrating for that instant that you really need to.
Mm.
So it was as the bowler was getting to the crease and into his gather that I would say the word now. And if I was on a day where I was struggling to concentrate, I'd say it out loud.
Mm.
And the fielders would go, "You're some kind of a psychopath." But that was the trigger to switch on to that
Yep.
full concentration mode. And I
Mm.
feel like I maybe need something like that as a bit of a trigger on the golf swing to make sure that I'm present, because there's a difference between thinking you're concentrating and really properly concentrating. And Steve Waugh talked a lot about that when he was captain of Australia, and probably was the best at it of all time.
Yep.
So
Interestingly,
anyway,
I do have a trigger similar to that on the golf course, which involves my glove. In that, as soon as I finished my shot, I ripped the Velcro off from a glove, and either have my glove off or the Velcro not done up on my glove. And as I arrive at my ball, all of a sudden I either put my glove back on, or I put do the Velcro back up again, and that's my trigger.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel I need something like that. I might have to work on something along those lines, whatever it might be. I can't do the same thing as you, because that's just weird. That's copying. I won't do that. Anyway, there's one thing we haven't talked about. I'm interested to hear this. You mentioned aim point.
Yes.
How's it going?
Yeah. I really like aim point. Now it's only the early stages of my understanding of aim point, and I do need to work on some of my techniques still, and that's an ongoing process that I think I'll always be working on my understanding of the techniques of aim point. You're always adjusting. However, what I really like about aim point is that it gives you a target. So I'm behind the ball, I figure out where my target is, where my line is, and then as I stand over the ball, I don't think about my line or target anymore. I'm thinking about speed. I'm thinking about pace. And I've been able to, I guess, gain enough confidence already in aim point to just forget about the line. Once I've got my target, once I've got my target line, that's it. I've got it. So it's all about pace. Now, last week on Friday out at Magenta, pace was my main issue, because Magenta greens were very, very speedy. So pace was a massive issue, but line wasn't. And I actually hit some really good putts inside 2 or 3 meters. When you're 40, 50 feet from the pin, when you're going down swales and back up again, getting it within sort of 2 or 3 meters is a reasonable putt. But I hit a lot of really good putts inside 2 or 3 meters, and I wasn't thinking about line at all. I had that. I knew where my target was, and I was just thinking about pace. So I've got a lot of confidence in what it's going to offer, and I think that as I progress in my technical understanding and my skill base around aim point, I think it's really something that's going to be a positive in my game.
That's awesome. So hearing you talk about that makes me think that it's a technique which is helping you pick a point to aim at, which might have something to do with where the name came from. Anyway.
Correct. Very, 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 very literal.
Yes.
And I did try not to say that I had an aim point.
Aim points taught me to aim at a point.
Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic. Who would have thought?
Tried to explain it slightly differently to that.
I think you did a good job. You did a good job. Yeah. Better than referring to the missing links as the link that is missing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's that interesting. That conversation was very front and center in my mind when I was thinking about how am I going to talk about aim point. It is a point to aim.
Oh, that is gold.
But it is a very literal is that it does. I mean, I talk about target and line of the putt, but it quite literally does give you a point to aim at. And once you've got that, and as long as you have the confidence in it, you can just forget about that aim point and focus on speed, and that's it. And what is, if it's one less thing that you're focused on, and talked a little bit earlier about, I'm trying to feel a lot more around the golf course. Well, speed is about feel. So, the technical aspect of it, of getting that line, getting that target, I want to forget about that while I'm over the ball. So then it's all about feel, and it's all about speed. So for me, it's just given me a pretty good positive feeling when I'm standing over a putt, which is good.
So with your putting, do you use a line on your ball? Do you line a line up to the point that you're aiming at?
No. So what I'll do, I'll pick a point maybe 6 inches to a foot in front of the ball, and whether it be a different colored, blade of grass or something that's there, a discolored point where I can remember where it is. And as I stand over the ball, I actually don't look at the ball when I'm having my practice swings. I look at the hole. Of course, I'm trying to feel how hard I've got to hit it, and then my last movement is looking at that point that I've identified to make sure that my alignment is correct. And then it's all about then just trying to reproduce that feel that I've had in my practice swings.
So I've gone to using the line, and you mentioned, I think it was in episode 2 when we were talking about the strokes gain side of things, that you had noticed an improvement in my putting over the last couple of years.
Yes, correct.
I actually put that down to using the line. And so I do that religiously now, all of the time, and we'll line it up to aim at the line I'd need to start the putt at, or where I think I need to start the putt at. I feel like it does a similar thing, because then I can stand over the ball and I'm not thinking about the line anymore, because I've read the putt, stand over the ball, and then you're just thinking speed to try and get the right pace, which I find the hardest part of putting. But that, I think, has made a massive difference. I just wonder if that's worth experimenting with for you.
Potentially, yeah. And it is something that I've thought about previously, just never implemented into my putting. But it is something that, certainly I can see the advantage of having a line on your ball to be able to line up. And certainly in my case, that little bit of grass or the discoloration that I've identified that I want my ball to roll over, having then a line on the ball to make sure it's lined up at that point. I can see the advantage of doing that.
I actually think it makes such a big difference that it probably should be illegal. Right. It really is an alignment device. And you can't use alignment devices, so I don't know why it is allowed. But that's personal view. I just think it's made such a big difference. And I know now, if I try and hit a putt longer than about 2 feet without the line, I'm so inaccurate in comparison to using the line. It's made that big a difference.
Okay.
So anyway,
I'll have a crack at it, and I'll come back to you with some feedback.
Yeah.
I'll use aim point, and then I'll use the line for my aim point.
To aim at the point to hit the ball. Fantastic. All right, Andy Walker, it's been a big night. We've covered a lot of ground, I think, which has been good. It's been one of those episodes that you need to have every so often, where you kind of circle back on a few things that have been spoken of and wrap that up. I think it's good to see that there is progress. I feel like neither of us have put a score together yet that demonstrates that progress, but I feel excited by my 9 holes during the week. I think that potentially there's something there. I am playing this Saturday, round 1 of the club championships.
Nice.
Round 2 is on Sunday. I don't think I'm going to get that past the goalkeeper. So hopefully it'll be one of those situations where I'm leading the club championships on Saturday, and I'll just have to say that's that's the one that I probably would have won if I was able to play both days. But anyway, we shall see. It's free swing number 2.
Well, interestingly, coming back to sort of David McClelland and a conversation that I had with David on Friday, we had lunch after the game. And we had one of those conversations, and you and I have had these conversations where at the end of it, we just go, we should have recorded this conversation because he's had such great content.
Yeah.
So we went a bit more in depth as to what we covered on the podcast. We talked a lot about mentors and the importance of having mentors. But then we talked about sort of what our expectations should be around time frame, and certainly specific to me, how long it would take me to get back down to scratch. And he said 2 years. He believes it would be 2 years, given the time that I've got available to be able to get back down to scratch. So I think that's, I've said that I want my game to be, from a strokes game perspective, minus 3.5 across and more consistent in 12 months time. So then 2 years time, want to be back down around scratch.
He may well be right, but I would like to throw this into the mix, and that is that just the simple fact that we're doing this has already shifted your mindset. And I think that is going to make a big difference in itself and force you to think in a different way, to approach the game in a different way, to approach your practice in a different way, and all those sorts of things, which I think might speed the process up a little.
Potentially. I mean, look, it certainly put a lot more structure and put a framework into what I'm doing around golf, which I haven't had for a very long time. And that was the whole part of why we started the podcast. And we had a lot of those conversations in the past few months leading up to that episode 1 around, and golf was always at that bottom rung of the ladder. And we wanted to put a process and framework in place to get that up. It will never be at the top of the ladder, but certainly a lot higher than where it is or where it was a few weeks back. So yeah, you're right. It has shifted that mindset. It shifted where what I'm thinking about when I'm playing golf and when I'm practicing golf. And I had a practice session on Tuesday morning, and I was a lot more focused. I mean, from a ball striking perspective, I didn't have a particularly good ball striking session. Had a really good wedge session at the end of the practice session, but it gives me something to think about. And it gives me something to work on and a lot more focus during the time that I'm there.
Yes. So I'm hoping at least that there'll be some progress that we see fairly soon. On that note, we are now at just over the 50-minute point on tonight's episode, Andy Walker. So I think that is probably a good place to wrap it up until next week. And when we come back next week, there's a few things that we will be able to do. One of those is to review hopefully one or more rounds of golf that have taken place between now and then. The other thing that we will be doing is an in-depth build-up to that most remarkable golf event on the planet, which is the Missing Links Masters that is to be held at the end of this month. So we'll talk more of that next week and give all of our listeners in Australia and overseas in this global show that is the Missing Links Golf Show a bit of a sneak peek on what to expect from potentially an episode recorded live at the range in the build-up to the Masters. That's exciting.
Looking forward to the Missing Links Masters. Will be a great event.
It will be a fantastic weekend. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to all of our listeners around Australia. Thank you very much to all of our listeners in a different time zone in the US. We love that you're loving it. To our Japanese listeners still over in Tokyo, great work. And hopefully at some point in the near future, we'll have some European and English listeners and maybe even a few people from Africa. Who knows? We'll see where this goes. But anyway, until then, Andy Walker, you have a great weekend and we'll talk to you next week.
See you next week.